Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Investor Lab. My name's Goose, and joining me on today's episode is a good friend of mine, Hadley Nightingale. Now, Hadley is a specialist property buyer in New Zealand. So I thought we'd take a slightly international view on property investing today, and I know that you're going to get a lot out of it because we didn't really, we kind of went on a bit of a winding journey, but it was definitely a fun one and definitely insightful. We talked about how he got started in real estate, which is in fact by a failed farming venture or a bad business idea. And that led him to working in the mines in Western Australia, participating in the Rich Dad, Poor Dad education process, which arms him with the skills and knowledge to not only build a successful property portfolio in New Zealand, but also position himself as an expert in New Zealand and able to help other people too. So we covered a lot of stuff in there. We even covered finding the value in bongs on the windows when you're looking at a property, which is pretty funny. We spoke about the drama triangle and how to stay outside of that if you want to succeed in any relationship. He also covered kind of the two key points on location selection and some really key characteristics that you can apply not only in New Zealand, but in any property market and property journey, building a team and all of that kind of stuff. So I think it was a really, it was a fun conversation. I think you're going to have a laugh. We certainly did. I really enjoyed it, and I know that you will too. And I think this is really going to be suited to anyone who particularly likes the idea of investing with cash flow properties, because New Zealand has got a great view to investing with yield. It's a pretty good yield market. Slightly not as good growth, but a good yield market. So we talk about the strategies that work there, and but also how you can apply those strategies in Australia as well. So this is really going to be suited to anyone who has an interest in property or has an interest in understanding the dynamics between different markets, and anyone who has gone on a transformative journey in their own personal wealth story, which I would say is most people. So I think this is really going to hit home with many, many listeners. As you can tell, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm certain that you will too. And I look forward to getting your feedback. Now, as ever, if you have enjoyed this, then don't hog it. Don't keep it to yourself. Share the love. Share it with your friends, your family, your loved ones. Share it with people who you don't love, but you know probably need a little bit of help. Because after all, sharing is caring, and it's good to love people into kindness. So do that. Check it out. And also, by the way, subscribe, because that means a lot. And so does rating and commenting and do all the stuff. The more you participate, the more that we show up, the more that you get out of it. So we will give back as much as you give back to us. And as ever, if you want to pursue this further, and if you want to expand not only your mind, but the conversation and the connectivity that you have, not only with myself, Gabby, but also the community of other investors, entrepreneurs, like-minded individuals, all finding success in real estate and personal wealth, then head to theinvestorlab.com.au. There's loads of different resources, loads of different options and different ways that we can help you, including our online community. You'll be able to connect with us from a buyer's agency perspective, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, check it out. And I hope this has been beneficial to you. We love what we do because we know that it is empowering investors like you to transform their wealth creation journey. And that's what it's all about for us. So yeah, give us some feedback. Love your work. Thanks for listening. See you on the inside. Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Investor Lab. My name's Goose, and joining me today is a very, very special guest, a good friend of mine, someone who I actually speak to on a weekly basis, who shares a lot of the same passions that I do, some similar parts of his backstory. A good friend of mine, Hadley Nightingale. How are you?
Morning, Goose. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. So a little bit of context here. So we've known each other for about a year now or so. We hang out in a mastermind group together, which is pretty cool. But in case people didn't pick it up there from your accent just when you said g'day, you're actually not in Australia. You're in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, that's correct, mate. So there'll be times of Aussie twang that come out, but there'll be a bit of a Kiwi that also flies in there from time to time.
Yeah, awesome. So now the reason we connected in the first place is because we are both buyer's agents. Now, what I think is really interesting is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, are there any other buyer's agents in New Zealand?
Mate, there's a couple, but yeah, it's not a mainstream thing. It's not like you see in Australia with heaps of them. We're a pretty niche and small market, just getting started.
Yeah, interesting. So when you say there are a couple of others, like how do they operate? What's the difference between you and them?
So basically, the other guys that are out there also sell property as well. So they'll buy a house for you, they'll sell some property for you, they'll sell you some off the plan developments as well. Whereas myself and what I do, just straight down the line, bespoke. We sit down, we have a meeting, and go, right, what are you looking for, and let's go out and get it for you.
Okay, interesting. Now, part of the reason I wanted to get you on the podcast, not only because I really thoroughly enjoy every time we catch up for conversation, I always get a lot out of it. I've really grown to really appreciate the insights that we both have on each other's businesses and how we operate. And I love the fact that we're doing very similar things. We've got share the same values and on different sides of the pond. So there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences, which gives us both a unique perspective. Now, aside from being a buyer's agent as well, like I am, you're also starting to venture into the education and community building space as well, which is another interesting thing. We'll touch on that later.
Cool.
But part of the reason I really wanted to get you on, aside from the fact that I think you're cool, is because a lot of people do talk about investing in New Zealand. Now, obviously, most of the people who listen to this podcast are based in Australia. Yep. But we all know that New Zealand is just the additional state of Australia anyway, so it kind of makes sense to explore investing there. And I really want to just take a little step back though and question what is your backstory? Like, how did you get into this? Like, what made you start in property? How did you end up here? What are you doing?
Yeah, cool, man. So take you back to about 2006, 2007, where property prices were going through the roof. Decided back then that farming was the thing for me. I was going to go and milk some cows, and that was going to be where it all came together. So went out with my parents at the time, and we went and we got some advice from a real estate agent who told us, look, go out and buy this bit of land, it'll be amazing. Spoke to an accountant who said, hey, look, it all looks pretty good. Lawyer went, yeah, sure, they're not making any more land, go out and buy some. So went out and bought this bit of land. Fantastic idea at the time. But when you don't really know what you're doing, and you make a few bad decisions, you sometimes find yourself in a bit of a precarious position, shall we say, where you've got to go and find work elsewhere to keep paying the bills.
Okay, let's not hang on. Take a little step back. So you got this sage advice that they're not making any more land. You started to go buy some. Why? You obviously alluded there that it was a bad idea. Why was that a bad idea? What happened? Why was that wrong?
Just basically through lack of understanding. We put in a maize crop that was supposed to be sold at a price. Didn't get a contract on the end price, and went, hey, look, I know the guy. He'll be good for it. Turns out he wasn't, and so a crop that should have been sold for 80 grand sold for 20. So it's just that there was infrastructure that was going in. So I suppose it's the old adage of there was more money going out than what there was.
So did you approach that purchase from the perspective of like a real estate investment or a business investment? Because it seems like it was a business investment first and foremost.
Bit of both. So real estate investment from the perspective of it's close to town, potentially subdivided at some stage.
Whereabouts?
So it's up in Whangarei where I live. So a couple of hours north of Auckland.
Yep.
So the subdivision potential, town's growing out, happy days. Let's get on the wagon. And then obviously 2008, 2009, well 2008 happened not long after.
Financial crisis, right? Yeah.
GFC, prices dropped. So selling it wasn't an option to get ourselves back out of where we were. So sort of put that on hold, leased it out, and then moved to Australia to work over there where there was in Western Australia where there was some more money to be made.
Yeah. I'm interested in going there. Why Maize though? I'm stuck on this. You went and bought a farm. So this was your first foray into real estate?
Yeah.
So your first foray into real estate, you decided to go and buy a farm and grow maize.
Yeah. So, like I said, with the idea behind it was that I was going to end up being a farmer. That was where it was all gonna.
You're going to make it rich in grain.
We're going to make it rich in grain.
Why maize? Like, why maize? Like, I understand wanting to be a farmer. Like, my brother's a farmer. I grew up in a regional area. What the hell made you decide that you were spontaneously just going to go and buy some land and become a maize farmer?
Oh mate, it was part of the grand scheme. So the good thing with the maize was at the time was very profitable. Should you be able to sell it for the right price, and should you have a contract on it? And when you can't do either of those two things, it becomes not so profitable, and cattle would have been the far better option. But you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, got it. I actually saw a lot of similar stories growing up. As I mentioned, I grew up in a regional area, and I saw all these different phases that came through, like alpacas, ostriches, and all of these kind of like, because you'd hear stories of someone who's made their millions or whatever farming ostriches, and all of a sudden all these ostrich farms start popping up everywhere, and then everyone's like, fucking hell, no one wants ostriches. No one wants ostriches. There's too many ostrich eggs. And then you just had all these like high fenced big backyards with big birds running around and no one knew what to do. So no, I think it's not an unfamiliar story. So okay, so your real estate investing journey started out in a bit of an unusual way in that you decided to try and make it rich selling maize. Now that didn't work out. So then what?
So obviously, because of what happened with property prices at the time, and as you'd know, mate, any time that you buy something that's negatively geared, you're reliant on other sources of income to go and prop it up. So what I ended up doing was move to Western Australia, into the wheat belt there. So spent some more time with some more grain. And
was that deliberate? Like, were you like, oh, hang on. If I just go over there, I'll work out what they're doing, and I'll come back here and I'll smash this? Or
no, I wish, mate. I basically at that time, my mind was that if I work some more hours for a higher hourly rate, I'm going to make some more money, and that's as simple as my thinking was. And where can I go in Australia that's going to pay me the most money? At that time was in Western Australia. I think I was earning about $14.50 an hour in New Zealand at the time, and then went to the big bucks of WA to $22 an hour. So it was, and then just had to work 100-hour weeks to make it work.
You didn't look very hard, did you? If the best job that you could find was $22.50 an hour. I worked at pubs and got paid more than that. What's going on?
Mate, I was brought up on a farm. At the time was very narrow-minded into knowing what I know and trying to stick to the safe route at the time.
Okay, I think it's a really interesting point you touched on with negative gearing there, because the way that I like to think about property and real estate is that it is a business, right? And so approaching that first purchase with the idea that it would be a business venture and that the business opportunity would provide the cash flow is ostensibly no different from investing in residential real estate. Like there's literally, conceptually, there's no difference. What you are buying is a piece of land, and what you're operating is a business on top of it. And in the case of residential real estate, you're operating the business of a dwelling which services clients with their needs of shelter. In this case, you just maybe chose the wrong business proposition. Okay, so you went to WA. You started earning the princely sum of $22.50 an hour. What were you doing?
So I was basically driving tractors around paddocks and planting grain, and then working on the farm during the off in the growing season, and then harvesting again. So did that for a couple of years. Then got a wonderful idea that, hey, maybe driving road trains is the thing I can do. Let's give that a crack and see how we go.
How did that go?
Well, pretty well, I think. First job, quite a good story actually. So first job I got, it just happened to be at the local supermarket, and bumped into a guy that owned the local road train company. And so, hey mate, I've got my road train license. you got any jobs going? He goes, oh, actually, a guy's leaving in a couple of weeks' time, and I need someone to fill his position. Have you got any experience? Yeah. Driven a few tractors and a few trucks around the place, so we should be sweet. So got that job, and then the first day on the job, I drove from Perth to Exmouth, which was no mean feat, and it just sort of it carried on from there. So from there, ended up driving quads out of Port Hedland, and then moved into the mining game.
Nice. And
so that was sort of over a couple of year period, and then in the mines for a few years before moving back to New Zealand.
Nice. Weren't you smoking like about 600 ciggies a day whilst you're driving those trucks? I remember you telling me that.
At least. nothing like lighting one off the other.
Oh, rough. Okay.
Yeah, very.
Okay. Cool. So have you still got that? Have you still got that first parcel of land?
Mate, we've still got it. I think the value now is probably sitting about where we bought it.
Oh, well, that's good.
So,
at least you haven't lost anything.
No, this is true. Well, I mean, you don't lose any money until you've got to sell it.
Exactly right. Okay, cool. So how did you go from a chain smoking truck driver in the mines in WA to real estate? Like property, particularly after you let's be honest, cooked it a bit on the first run. What made you go? What made you decide that chain smoking in the cab of a truck was not going to be the future for you? And then what led you from there into property, and why?
I think the whole time that I was there, I knew that it wasn't for me, that my life wasn't going to be an overweight, because I was about another 20 kilos heavier than what I am now as well. So knocking the ton mark. And so with that, I went, right, this isn't for me. I need to branch out and do some other stuff. So I always had little side hustles going on as well, and then got back to New Zealand and thought, right, I'm 29, nearly 30. I need to do something with my life rather than doing what I have been doing. So yeah, as I said, came back to New Zealand, went to a Robert Kiyosaki event, and went, right, from what these guys are saying, there's got to be some money in property. But obviously there was that fear at the same time to go, well, as you say, I've cocked it up once. So I think if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to need some help with it. And I think that was where I sort of sat on the property side of things, was that the intention was always to go back in it, but I just never knew how. And I also just wanted to make sure that if I was going to do it again, that we had someone there that actually knew what they were talking about to help us on that journey, rather than good luck, get out there and see if you can make the same mistakes again.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it's good that you had that self-awareness, because a lot of people don't. I have a lot of people that come to me looking for help, and sometimes they have like 5 properties and they've literally made mistakes on all of them. And in fact, I had one guy who I got on the phone with the other week, and he had 9 properties. And I was thinking, I said to him, I said, what do you need my help for? You bought 9 properties. What do you need a buyer's agent for? And he said, well, none of them have grown. None of them have grown in 15 years. And I was like, how? Wow. I was like, what have you been doing? Anyway, being off the plans and all of this kind of stuff. But it's good that you had that self-awareness and you sought to get a bit of guidance. But what happened there? So you went to the Robert Kiyosaki event. Now, I know what that is, but a lot of people don't. And I'm just gonna rip the scab off. A lot of people say it's a scam. A lot of people say it's a scam. A lot of people say that you go to these property seminars where you've got these big visionary, like you can get rich in real estate and all of that kind of stuff. And they say that it's a scam. What was your experience? How did you traverse that whole environment? What did you get out of it? What was good? What was bad? Yeah.
Cool, man. So I suppose the thing for me is I sat there in that event and went, I'm a bit of a skeptic. And I went, well, even if a third or a quarter of the stuff that this guy's telling me at the front of the stage, if I can just get a quarter of what he said, or an eighth of what he said, I'm going to make my money back on this investment and on this journey.
He must have been saying some pretty big stuff if you only needed an eighth.
Well, I mean, in terms of it, if when you're sitting there and you've got and you've got zero and you've been going backwards for a number of years. And someone's saying, hey, look, you can make $4,000 a month, in the next 2 years. Well, $500 a month would have been better to me than the negative 1,500 at the time. So I suppose I sat there and I went through that and went, well, the value that the guys showed, what they knew, was a case of, well, let's go and see. Worst case scenario, we lose 40 grand. I've lost 700. What's the difference? Well, a couple of zeros, but 40 wasn't anything in comparison to the 700. So, but I suppose it's like anything, mate. If you go down the line and you pay the money, and you're committed to going and doing something. Well, most of the time anyway. And most of the reason that we wouldn't have done well in it was because we didn't do anything. If we hadn't have done anything. And I think that's the same. That's the same with my business now, with people that have the best of intentions, but then don't want to do anything, and you can't guarantee success that way.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there's a really interesting construct called the drama triangle. Are you familiar with that?
No, not 110.
Okay, so the drama triangle is basically a I can't remember. It's like a human psychology organizational viewpoint. I can't remember. I'll chuck some links in the show notes for people that are interested. But it essentially says that there's always a triangle in any relationship, and at any given point in time, you are either the victim, the savior. What is it? Victor, savior, and enemy. Victim, savior, enemy. Right, and so, depending on where you sit in that drama, the aim of the game is to get outside the drama triangle and to not participate in it. But a lot of people enter into relationships, whether they be business relationships, training relationships, or whatever, and they are the victim, and what they're looking for is a savior. I've been guilty of this myself. I've signed up for courses thinking this is going to be the thing that fixes the problems that I've got, and I sign up and I'm like, why isn't everything fixed? Yeah. You said I gave you money. All right. And then that's me being the victim and expecting the whatever it was to be the savior. And then when it doesn't save me because I'm being the victim, they inevitably move from savior to enemy. And then I start to go, whoa, you're a bad person and all that kind of stuff. There's a personal responsibility piece in there. Now, it's important to note anyone can be any part of the drama triangle. It's not one way. You don't just come in and I'm a victim. You can actually be the savior. And if it's very interesting to analyze where you sit. I always try and apply that to any relationship that I have. And the aim of the game is to get outside the triangle and just not have that mutually respectful relationship where you go, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need to do some work or whatever. Yeah. So, okay. So you showed up and you did the work.
Yeah. So
nice.
So I mean, we showed up, we did the work, and I suppose we were talking about this a little bit the other day with the value side of things and the cost of things, and it was quite interesting when you said, did you see some value in the course, or did you see value in what you were going to do? And I suppose that once again comes down to perspective, that anything can be valuable to anyone, but it depends what you do with it and how you perceive that at the same time.
Yeah.
Paid the money, went through the mentoring course there, bought 2 properties in the first, within 3 months of going through the mentoring program, and then gone on to buy more property.
Tell me about those. Tell me about those properties. Tell me about them.
Mate, the first one was a little 4-bedroom house in Palmerston North. Walked into the house, I'd probably say it smelt of money. While people were running the other way, we walked in there going, there's black mold, there's bongs on the windows, there's all sorts of great things that are going to put a family off.
So what you're saying is mold and bongs smell like money, is that right?
In certain circumstances, yeah.
Do you want to just explain it? Do you want to just explain that thinking a little bit? Because I think I understand what you're saying. You're basically saying it was a dive, right?
Yeah, so it was a dive. It was somewhere where people were walking out of the house going, oh, this place needs a bulldozer through it. What it really needed was obviously the bongs and everything taken out, a good paint, some new carpet, and a bit of air freshener through the house made a world of difference. I mean, there was the bathroom needed replacing as well, so it was just really a nice, quick and easy renovation with paint, carpet, and a bathroom. Nothing too extensive.
Classic carpet, paint, fixtures, fittings.
Exactly.
It's so surprising what impact that can have.
Yeah,
it is so surprising what impact that can have, not only from a yield perspective, but also an equity perspective. Because if you buy, let's say, a dump, but it's structurally all good, you're sitting on a gold mine, and particularly if everyone else is walking out of the place going, this is no good. So tell me, what was the trigger that made you want to buy that first property? Was it the uplift potential? Was it the yield? What was the strategy? Flip, hold?
So we've still got that place at the moment. So the idea behind it was we bought in a student town. The house itself is about 300, 400 meters from the center of town. Huge student population. The street itself, go back 10 years ago, would have been solely a student street. There wouldn't have been a owner-occupier that lived in it. And so slowly the demographic of people that live in the streets are changing with that as well. But we, at the time, we were doing student accommodation, so rent by room there was a really good option. And then also to the equity uplift in it as well was also the other side of the coin. So we got both cash flow with it and also the equity side of things as well.
So rent by room. So does that mean you turned it into a boarding house?
So over here, a boarding house is 6 tenancies on one title. Under that is just a normal rental situation. So in that house there we had four different rooms, 4 tenancies, and then if we had a couple in any of the rooms, we'd charge another $50 a week for that.
Okay, how much did that property cost, and what was the how much do you have to put into it to fix it all up? Right, general broad, and what kind of yields, returns, like how did that stack up? Because this is your first foray back into it after absolutely stuffing up your farming journey. So I mean, I'm interested to know how you spearheaded what's become your future in the industry.
Yeah, so what we did, mate, purchased that one for $250,000. There was about 32 grand's worth of work that went into it. And at the moment it's rented at $545 a week.
Wow.
So it's not bad going.
I can see why you still got it.
Yeah.
So basically all in 285 grand.
Yeah.
And it's now spitting out 500 odd bucks a week. Yeah,
we'll call it 550 for round figures. So
that's awesome.
It's not a bad start into things.
That's awesome. Okay, yeah, cool. All right, I can see how this very quickly started to escalate from there. So what happened next? Very quickly, like where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so we about a week later we settled on our second property, which was about 3 or 4 k's away. Once again, really good family suburb close to the university. That was a 5-bedroom place. Same thing, rented it room by room. I think at the moment, off the top of my head, we're getting about $770 a week for it. Purchase price on that was $391,000, and there was about 3.5 grand's worth of renovations. There was a leaky shower that needed to be fixed, and a new vanity put in the corner, and then we were ready to rock and roll with that one.
Nice. Do you reckon you would ever have been able to work out how to do any of that if you hadn't done the course and gotten the mentorship and stuff?
Probably, but I don't know is the answer. After my first run at it, I didn't have the best of track records. So I suppose from a confidence perspective and the ability to sleep at night, definitely gave us the confidence to do that. But also too, things like walking into that first house and going, well, everyone else is going, this place is a dive. Why on earth would you want to buy it? Knowing what we knew then, we were going, right, cool, we've got some confidence. I can bounce this off someone that's unemotional and not in the deal to go, hey, look, this is what we're looking at. What do you think?
Mm.
And then to have someone go and objectively look at it and go, well, this is good, that's rubbish. Or have you thought about doing X to help you with Y? And I think that was the key bit, was that unemotional attachment to go, here's what you could do, or no, that's not good, you're way too emotional about this.
So, okay, that's good. And so how did you go from there, being the student, or being the mentee, or however you want to frame it, but how did you go from there to where you are now?
So I suppose with that, I ended up doing a bit of work for Legacy, or the Rich Dad Company. We travelled around New Zealand and Australia for about 18 months with them. So obviously with that, there's a fair bit of belief in what the guys do and the product as well. So through that time, we had a joint venture with another guy, and then we built up another deposit and started to buy again. Except with that, our strategy changed from buying just single houses to either multi-unit, or a single house that can be turned into a multi-unit dwelling. So strategy's changed a little bit, but with that, the budget's gone up considerably as well.
Okay, so when you say multi-unit, do you mean apartment blocks? What do you mean?
So like standalone house with a firewall down the middle of it. So you have a 3-bedroom on one side and a 2-bedroom house on the other. Or you have a 3-bedroom downstairs and a 3-bedroom upstairs. So I've gone for more a house type feel rather than apartment blocks.
Okay, so we'd call that a duplex.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So basically 2 houses joined together, two separate rentable, Yeah, awesome. Okay.
We'll go for the Aussie term. I understand that one now.
No, it's good. It's good. I find it really interesting because I like to listen to a lot of US investing stuff as well, and they talk about multifamily homes and all of this kind of stuff. And I love to understand what the nuances are between all of the different terminologies. So that's good. Okay. So your strategy's changed. What do you think is the best strategy for New Zealand then? Because it clearly sounds a little different from what we would probably be looking to do here in Australia. What do you think is the best strategy for New Zealand?
Mate, I think the best strategy at the moment is definitely from a cash flow perspective. For me and what I do isn't so much focused on growth, other than what we know we can forcefully appreciate. So our main focus, and most of my clients' main focus, is the cash flow side of things, and then also adding some value-adding rooms to then go and generate equity thereafter. But main focus, buy and hold.
Okay, so why it's very interesting perspective. Why don't you focus on growth? Like, why is that not something that operates in your vernacular? You just said that we don't worry about growth except for what we can create. So does that mean you're just investing any old where, or like, surely you want the property prices to go up, right? And you want to have some confidence around that.
I think that the main focus for us is over town size. So anything under sort of 40,000 people, we wouldn't look at. But like for us, rental demand and affordability are the two keys. So those are the things that we can control to a degree. The growth is something that I find a little bit crystal ball gazing, and that we know that if we can buy a house for X, we know that we're going to get X number of dollars a week rent for it, and then done up houses in the area are worth Y, then we're obviously going to have that. We're going to have that growth in there, and obviously over a period of time, you're going to expect that property to grow. But it's not something that I specifically look at to go, right, year 2 it's going to be worth this, year 3 it's going to be worth this, year 4 it's going to be worth this. I look and go, right, $1,000 we're going to get $500 a month cash flow this month. We're going to get $500 a month cash flow next month. Those are the things that we can almost guarantee. We're not going to lose anything until we've got to sell it. And if we've got cash flow, then the selling becomes irrelevant to a degree.
That's interesting. So does that mean that every deal you look for must have the ability to manufacture equity? Like how do you build a portfolio on that basis?
So most of the stuff that we buy is something where we can add value to. So, and it's also very client dependent. We have clients just go, hey, look, I want to buy something that's near brand new, got a really high paying job, or I've got, a mortgage free house that's worth whatever it's worth, so we can draw down on that and use those bundles of equity. In terms of someone that was starting, that was going to build a portfolio, we'd be looking to start in the smaller regional towns, where affordability is one thing, but we also know that we can get some equity uplift in there as well to recycle. The other thing that's just happened in New Zealand that's going to make things a lot easier is that the changing of the loan to value ratios. They were at 70%. The Reserve Banks just said, hey, look, we're going to remove the loan to value restrictions, but that's going to be bank to bank dependent on what they'll lend.
Can you just explain that a little bit? So what do you mean loan to value restrictions? Like, because in Australia you can get 90% LVR loans. If you're really entrepreneurial, you can probably find 100% LVR loans still.
Right. Okay.
But 80 to 90% is typically sort of where most investors are sitting. So what do you mean the LVR restrictions?
All right, sorry, mate. Yeah, so back in 2016, they put a restriction on loan to value ratios. So for a while there, it was you needed a 60% deposit a 40% deposit to buy a house. Then it went up to 65, and then now it's sitting at 70%. They'll lend you. So you went 40% deposit, 35%, 30. And now they've loosened that back up again. So up until this point, it's been really difficult to recycle deposits back out of property because you've had to leave so much money in for the loan to value rules. So now with the releasing of them, it's going to be a lot easier for guys to go and buy something or a $250,000 house that you're going to need a $50,000 deposit for, rather than closer to 100 for exactly the same thing.
How do you think that's going to change the market? Do you think that's going to suddenly create a boom scenario because you can have all these different people who can all of a sudden access equity, and they're going to start racing around and going, let's go buy more houses?
I think the big thing is confidence, mate, at the end of the day. Who knows what the fallout from the whole coronavirus thing. I mean, obviously, we've been struck down a little harder than you guys in terms of our lockdown. We got fully locked down for a month, so basically there was no one trading. There's been huge amounts of job losses, and which I suppose to a degree we won't see the full extent of until our government wage subsidy ends. And then also too, the government said to the banks that, hey, look, you need to give everyone a mortgage holiday. So while the wage subsidy is happening and while the mortgage holidays things happening, happy days where we get money and we're not having to pay for things. But I think over the next 6 months it'll be interesting. And there's a lot of people around going, I don't know whether I'm going to have a job soon. I don't know what the market's going to do. And so I think with the uncertainty in there, I don't see the market skyrocketing again. I could be wrong. That's my crystal ball gaze.
This is really interesting. Okay, so here you are. You're a property professional. You've transversed the journey from big mistake through to learning, through to building a portfolio, through to deciding you're going to help other people build portfolios. And you're sitting there saying that things aren't looking that great.
I think from a buying perspective, happy days. Is that we've potentially turned from a seller's market to a buyer's one. Obviously, people that have got secure jobs and that have got lending ability are going to be able to purchase property as they always have. It's the economic outlook for the country in general, which then drives consumer confidence. How are the banks going to look at this? And the banks are forecasting 10% unemployment. How are they going to look in terms of from a lending perspective and things like that? So from an opportunity perspective, I think there's going to be opportunity galore. From an economic country perspective, time will tell.
Do you think though that's going to make property prices go down? Like if do you think that's what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a drop.
Okay, so what is your advice then to someone who's considering buying right now?
I think with our clients at the moment is that we're looking at things once again from a cash flow perspective. So the way that most of my guys are looking at the moment is that if the numbers work for me now, and I don't have to sell the property in 6 months' time, we're in this for 5 to 10 years. So we're better to be in the market receiving some cash flow. And even if you're getting a net return of 3 or 4%, it's better than the 1.5% the bank's giving you at the moment. So that's sort of where we're sitting. I'd be nervous if I was trading property at the moment.
Trading is in buying, selling, flipping, and all of that kind of stuff,
yeah.
as opposed to taking a buy and hold strategy to it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. So, how much do you know about the Australian market?
Not a whole lot, mate. Not a whole lot.
Interesting. Have you had many Australians want to invest in New Zealand?
Probably 90% of my clients are Australians.
Why do you think that is?
A couple of things. Capital gains we don't have. So if you sell a property within 5 years, you'll pay income tax on the property or on the profit made, rather than a sole capital gains. We don't have stamp duty either, is the other probably key thing. And like I said before, a lot of my clients are coming to us going, look, we're just trying to chase some yield. So we're looking at stuff that's 6, 7, 7.5%, sometimes 8, depending on where we are. So it's really a combination of those three things are where people are looking.
So in your, if you were to give people guidance on doing it, you'd basically say, go for yield over growth, just keep chasing yield and you'll be fine.
No, I think that there needs to be a balance of things, and it depends on what clients are looking for. I mean, for me personally, I take a more balanced approach, where provided what we do is going to give us sort of $1,000 a month after expenses cash flow, but we can make 150 to 200 grand in 3 to 4 months with putting another building in there. Why wouldn't you? But not everyone's got that risk appetite.
So I might be missing something here, right? But so you can get $1,000 a month net cash flow, because when you say 6, 7, and 8% yield, I mean 8 is very high for Australia, but sixes are fine. We can get 6% yields. I find them every day of the week. That's totally fine. What I'm confused a little bit about though is how you're getting $1,000 net cash flow. What kind of properties are producing $1,000 net cash flow per month?
So to give you an example, the last property that we did, brought it for $450. We spent about 100 or 115 all up. That place there is renting out at $900 or $895 a week, with interest rates at 3.5%, 4%.
Right. That's a very interesting proposition. So is it just as easy as that sounds pretty appealing. That sounds pretty exciting. Now, because as I say, look, if we were to get, say, a 6% yielding property here, I would expect, depending on the loan structure, that the net cash flow on a per annum basis really depends on the loan structure, what the LVR is, what the interest rates are, and all of that kind of stuff. But it'd be somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 a year net. And so there's a big argument to say about that. So why doesn't everyone just go and pile over to New Zealand and start buying up all the Kiwis properties then?
No idea, mate.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think the other thing with that too is that in terms of our outgoings, just to give you some really rough numbers off the top of my head for the places I was just mentioning, our land rates are like $2,200 a year. Our insurance is $1,500 a year. So the cost of maintaining it isn't hugely expensive either. From an ownership perspective.
What are the property management rates like?
So we pay about 8.5% plus GST, which is 15% over here. So say 10% all in.
Yeah, right. It's a bit higher than we pay here. Mate, I'm interested. We're going to have to compare some notes and compare some numbers on that, because we might have to formulate a bit of a strategy between us, I think, because I think ostensibly the kind of people that we work with and the people that you work with are not dissimilar. And I think that's why we resonate with each other. And our strategies are fairly similar too. You need to be chasing the opportunity for capital growth, but you really need to be focusing on making sure it's cash flow positive, and then also looking at the different ways that you can add value. And one of the things, because I actually did the Rich Dad Poor Dad course as well, or I did at least a portion of it. I didn't do the mentorship program, stopped short of that. But the principles were really good, and they talked about investing in New Zealand. And the big kind of wake up call for me was they were talking about all these stuff that you could do in New Zealand, but then I was finding you could do it in Australia, and I was like, well, why would I go there? And it's a really interesting discussion to have, because if you just look at it on a top level basis, I can find exactly the thing here, and probably with better capital growth. Right? They're probably with better capital growth, and that's just the real basis of it. But it'll be interesting to compare some more detailed notes. We can do that offline. So, okay, mate, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone all the way from are you still got an interest in farming?
Yeah, yep. Still got the land. Just starting to expand my little chicken empire. So
why chickens? Why chickens? You've gone from maize to chickens. Why chickens?
Mate, I think that there's a global demand for protein. Is the honest answer.
How much market research have you done? Like, have you actually learned any lessons? Have you done some market research that indicates there's a global shortage of chicken protein?
Mate, you're not going to believe this, but I've got a couple of people that are deep in the industry that are mentoring me through the process of how I do this. So I have learned some lessons.
Mentoring you through the process. What is the Rich Dad Poor Dad equivalent in chicken farming world? What is that mentorship program?
No, it's through people that I've met. So there's no company traveling around the countryside offering you chicken mentorships.
Not yet.
There could be.
Once you crack the chicken code, that could be you could be the chicken man of New Zealand. Chicken and real estate. Hadley Nightingale. Chicken and real estate.
There you go.
I think there's something in that. So, mate, I've really enjoyed this discussion. As I said, we covered a lot of ground. We covered farming, how you kind of got to where you are, how you navigated, pulled yourself and stayed outside the drama triangle to successfully navigate the courses and stuff, which will put you in a really good position. I guess, have you got anything that you wanted to share with the listeners about how they, what if they wanted to invest in New Zealand, what should they be thinking about doing?
Yeah, I think like investing anywhere, the important thing is making sure you have a good team around you. And that doesn't matter whether you're in Australia or here. So having people that you know, like, and trust, and that if they give you some advice that's backed up by facts, and that they've got a reliable track record of what they've been doing. And I suppose the same thing if you're looking at buying property, that you need to make sure that people are licensed and that they've got the appropriate qualifications, and not just someone that's trying to sell you something off the back of the truck. The other important thing too is to remember that sales agents work for the seller. And as much as they want to tell you that they're there to give you a good time and look after you and get you a deal, at the end of the day, their duty there is to help the vendor get the best price for their property. So I suppose those are probably the three main takeaways from it. Team, make sure you find someone that knows what they're doing, and just be careful of the people that you take advice from, and check that they've got a solid track record.
Yeah, totally. I think that's great, because that's immutable advice that can transcend whether it's Australia, New Zealand, US, UK. I think you really need to build the right team, and I think that that's a great case for. That's essentially why I got started. That was really the foundational basis. Before I ever did any of the courses or anything like that, we went and bought what we thought was going to be an amazing property. We got sold. We got sold so well, mate. It was a Sunday afternoon. A quick story. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was feeling a little disenfranchised with life, and I was clutching for something. Gabby and I talked about buying a property, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and we had nothing to do. I said, "Should we just jump on the bikes and go for a little ride?" I saw there's some display units or whatever, right? So we'll just go check them out. And then we about the fourth one we ended up in, he's offering his bottles of champagne and all this stuff. And mate,
why wouldn't you?
Mate, we walked out of there with a contract. Like we went a Sunday bike ride, literally a Sunday bike ride, because we're like, let's go kill some time or whatever. And we ended up walking out with a contract. We're like, no, this is definitely a good idea. So I've been on the receiving end of that, and not actually having not actually having done the research and gotten the right advice and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's super important, and I think it's got to pass a logic test as well. So there's something that I like to bring to the table with people is facts. Facts are an opinion anyway, because you can take a piece of data and you can interpret it many different ways. So you need to be able to, it needs to stand up to a logic test. You need to be able to present all of the information and go, hey, this is robustly why I believe that it works. And if you understand this too, it should withstand robust scrutiny, and you should be able to believe it too. And there shouldn't be any kind of holes in the story. And I think that's a real key thing. So cool, man. Mate, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I look forward to mate, we might have to get you on again in the future just to get a bit more insight into the New Zealand market. Mate, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it. And if people do want to invest in New Zealand, how can they reach you?
Mate, best way to do it is either through Facebook, or Google my name is probably the easiest way. Hadley Nightingale, you'll find all of my social media links pop up right there. And then, or if you wish to email me, hadley@newzealandpropertybuyers.com.
Nice. Awesome, man. Mate, thanks so much for your time, and let's catch up again soon.
Sounds really good, mate. Really enjoyed it, and I look forward to coming on again.
Nice.